She hugged me as everything fell apart. And it wasn't until the next day that I found out she was the one who pulled the rug out from under me. I had just ascended the steps of St. Helena's Methodist Church in the heart of Charleston, still holding my bouquet, when my life turned to ashes. The engagement was set, the venue paid for, the invitation sent. But what I received that morning was a short, cold message of 5 words. Sorry, I need some time. Mark Langford. The man who promised me a life. The man who kissed my forehead and swore love as I sketched our apartment on coffee napkins. The same man who that morning vanished. And there was my sister, Jenna, supporting me, hugging me, telling me I was strong. She said in that soft voice that she didn't understand what had happened, that Mark must be going through a crisis, that men are complicated. She was wearing the same coral dress we had chosen together. But now, looking back, she already knew. That calmness of hers wasn't confusion. It was relief. I'm Brooke Adams, and for a long time, I thought being discreet, generous, and patient was a virtue. Today, I know that sometimes it makes you the perfect target. Jenna was always the hurricane. The girl in flash photos, with loud laughs, wearing tight red dresses. She got what she wanted and made it seem like it was deserved, never manipulation. We grew up in Mount Pleasant, a quiet neighborhood in Charleston, in a house with a white porch and flowering fences. Our parents divorced early. She stayed with my mom. I stayed with my dad. The divide was emotional, more than geographical. I learned to be restrained, to study, to listen. Jenna learned to shine, to demand, to shape the world around her. Even from afar, she always found a way to be at the center. We reconnected when I graduated and moved back to Charleston. I was teaching American literature at a high school and spending afternoons at Lavinia's Cafe, where I met Mark. He was a lawyer and always read printed newspapers, like a man from the 1950s. He liked Bukowski and buttery croissants. The first time we spoke was because of an article on public education. The conversation flowed. In 2 months, we were together. In a year, he asked to meet my father. In 2 years, he proposed. I was happy. More than happy, I was at peace. The kind of peace that doesn't explode in fireworks, but silences the internal screams. And maybe that's what irritated Jenna. She showed up at my engagement as if she were the maid of honor. She wasn't, but she acted as if she were. You need help with the preparations, she said. Let me talk to the decorator. You're overwhelmed. Jenna always knew how to wear concern like a disguise. I didn't see any malice. Only later did I understand. She wasn't helping. She was replacing me. 3 weeks before the engagement, Mark started to change. Long silences on the phone, avoiding glances. He said he was stressed about work, but I felt something else. Something cold. A deviation in the frequency. A rehearsed distance. One night, I found a pearl bracelet in his car. It's from my sister, he said. She asked me to fix it. Jenna wore the same bracelet. I never asked. Another time, he mentioned that he'd finalized the menu with Jenna. And I wasn't even consulted. That should have been the final red flag. But I was blind. Or better, anesthetized. We want so much to believe everything is fine, that we ignore the sound of the ground cracking. On the day of the engagement, I woke up at a.m. The house was quiet. I put on the playlist we had made together, wore my teal high neck dress, and buttoned it up alone. My dad, the only family member who supported me with silence and kindness, was stuck on a cancelled flight. He said he'd arrive by the end of the day. I didn't eat. I just looked at my reflection in the mirror. I thought I looked beautiful. And for a second, I believed nothing would go wrong. At 9:30 a.m., Jenna sent me a message. Everything's ready here at the venue. Has Mark arrived? I replied. He said he was going to the barber and would be here soon. That was my last optimistic message. At 10:14 a.m., my phone vibrated. It was Mark. Sorry, I need some time. There was no emoji, no comma, no ending. I called. Nothing. Called again. Nothing. I sat on the church bench, holding the bouquet, as the guests arrived one by one. Jenna showed up at 10:27 a.m., wearing high heels and new lipstick. She hugged me as if she were surprised. She said, "This must be a misunderstanding," but there was something in her hug, something too dry to be comforting. In the afternoon, I went to my mom's house. Jenna was there. She made coffee, served cake, tried to distract me with videos of dogs. She said, "Maybe he got scared, Brooke. This isn't about you, not about me." How is it not? I'm the one he left. On the day of our engagement, I slept in the living room, cried quietly. The next day, I woke up with a dry throat. I grabbed my phone, went on Instagram, and saw a story, a breakfast table, 2 plates, the pearl bracelet, and a caption. "Not all madness is a lack of judgment." It was Jenna's favorite caption. She had posted it, and Mark was on the other side of the table. My sister, with the man who abandoned me on the day after my engagement. And then everything clicked. The decorator, the car conversations, the knowing glances, the new dress, the bracelet, the "I need some time." She knew. She had been part of it. The question that kept me awake was simple. Why? What did my sister want to steal from me that she didn't already have? That night, I packed 2 changes of clothes and a book in a backpack. I left without saying a word. I stopped by Lavinia's, ordered hibiscus tea, and wrote on a napkin, "When betrayal comes from where you expect love, the pain isn't just loss, it's identity." Then I went to a small rental room in West Ashley, where no one knew me. The plan was simple: disappear before I faded away completely. But I had no idea that this quiet town, where I started with fear and shame, would become the stage for the biggest plot twist of my life. "You should be thankful I'm taking care of what you can't keep." That's what Jenna said when I finally confronted her. But that didn't happen right away. Before that sentence, I spent weeks trying to understand if I was to blame for everything. And believe me, when a woman is betrayed by someone she trusts the most, she doesn't just cry because of abandonment, she starts to doubt her own perception of reality. The first days in the rented room in West Ashley were strange. The smell of fresh paint, the bed that squeaked with every movement, the light that flickered at night. I slept with fear. Not fear of someone breaking in, but fear of waking up missing them. In the silence, I began to stitch the pieces together, and it all started to make too much sense. 3 months before the engagement, there was a Sunday when Mark showed up at my house with a bottle of wine and said he needed to talk. I thought it was about the ring, maybe he wanted to change the design, postpone the ceremony. But what he said was, "Your sister asked me to help with an employment lawsuit." Nothing major, just a contract review. Jenna had been fired from a gala event for inappropriate behavior with one of the investors. She swore it was a lie, and Mark, the protective lawyer, decided to help. At the time, I believed it. I thought he was just being kind. But now, I reviewed the way she smiled when he arrived, the way she looked at me over her coffee cup, as if she knew something I didn't. And she did. At the school where I taught, I started having anxiety attacks before classes. I would hide in the bathroom with my face in my hands, only returning when I could fake confidence. One day, I dropped my purse in the teacher's lounge. When I bent down to pick up my notebooks, a colleague said, "Are you okay, Brooke? You've been looking so pale lately. Did you see Jenna's story today? She posted a trip with a man, tall, dark, seemed familiar." My stomach turned. I grabbed my phone immediately. In the video, Jenna was lying on a hotel lounge chair. In the background, a male voice said, "Are you really going to post this?" And she responded, laughing, "They already know." The voice was Mark's. I knew the tone. Knew it too well. I went home and spent 3 hours in silence staring at the wall. That's when I understood that this wasn't just a love betrayal. It was a full erasure operation. My sister had done what she'd always done since we were little, put herself at the center of the scene, but this time, taking me off the stage of my own life. The next day, I took a leave from school. I stopped by Lavinia's, sat at the last table, and opened my email. Among messages of no importance, there was one from Jenna. Subject: "If you're going to be mad, don't even open this. Brooke, you've always been too sensitive. You've always had this contained drama, this little martyr act that wears everyone out. Mark is an adult. He made choices. And yes, we got closer, but maybe he just realized you weren't enough. Don't hate me for this. Deep down, I think I did you a favor." Jenna, I reread that message 3 times. A favor? She said she did me a favor. It was like she was explaining why she stepped on a vase and destroyed a plant and still suggested the vase was too ugly to continue existing. I closed the laptop, went to the coffee counter, ordered an apple cinnamon cake. The barista looked at me strangely. It was my first solid meal in days. She said, "You're the girl with the poetry notebook, right? The one who writes on napkins." I nodded, not knowing how she knew. "People have been asking about you here. They say your words make the day feel lighter. Maybe I still existed to someone." A week later, I decided to go back to my mom's house. Not to reconcile, but to confront. Jenna was there, of course, wearing my old sweatshirt, sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. Mark wasn't with her anymore. I later found out he had moved to Charlotte. To get some space, I walked in unannounced. She stood up, smiled, that same plastic expression she always had. "Brooke, you're thinner. Is everything okay? Did you sleep with him before or after my engagement?" Her smile hesitated, but only for a second. "I didn't come here to fight. I came to understand what you gained from this." Jenna sighed, put her hands in the pockets of her jacket. "You always had everything and didn't even realize it. Dad only looked at you. The school cheered for you. Mark loved you, and you thought it was normal. I just wanted to know what it was like to be in your place for once. You could have asked, 'Would you have let me?'" "No," she laughed. An awkward laugh. "So, that's it. I took what was yours. And no, I don't regret it. And now, he's gone, right? He'll come back. For you?" She didn't answer, and in that silence, something inside me broke. It wasn't love. It was the guilt for not seeing it sooner. At the end of the night, my mom came to me. She said she didn't want to interfere. That these things are between sisters. And that's when I understood why Jenna was always the way she was. She never had boundaries. I grabbed my purse, left there, and never looked back. 2 weeks later, I started writing again. But this time, it wasn't poetry. It was a plan, a project. And it wasn't about revenge. It was about rising again with the hands I had left. But I still had no idea that Mark would come back. And what he would say would change everything. In the first week in the room in West Ashley, I avoided the mirror. I was even ashamed of my own reflection. I didn't cry out loud, but I didn't sleep either. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the noises from the street, wondering how I ended up here. I was left at the altar without an altar, betrayed without warning, and still carrying the silence of a family that chose not to take a stand. I only had one suitcase, an old laptop, a pair of comfortable shoes, and a box my father gave me before he passed away. I had never opened it. He used to say it was for when I needed a good memory. I did. That cold Wednesday morning, I sat on the floor, opened the lid, and found a small leather notebook with slightly yellowed pages. It was a recipe and reflection journal my father kept hidden. He wrote excerpts from books, pasted photos of meals, and noted feelings about places where he had eaten with people he loved. On the inside cover, he had written, "A dish with affection can heal a broken heart. Tested by me, now by you." I closed my eyes and pressed the notebook to my chest. It was as if he was still with me. That night, I decided to try the recipe for apple pie with lemon zest. The kitchen in the rented room was tiny, the oven uneven, but there was something comforting in making my hands work while my thoughts tried to quiet. When I tasted the pie, I cried, not because it was good, but because it was familiar. As if, for a moment, I had gone back to a time when everything was simpler. I brought a piece to Lavinia's the next day, where I was still a discreet customer. The barista recognized me. She said she missed my notes on napkins. I used to leave small literary phrases with my name signed in the corner. She said many people asked about them. Without thinking, I left a piece of pie on the counter with a note. Recipe from my father. Slow healing, but healing. I went back home. I slept for the first time. The following week, I started writing again, but not about pain. I wrote about flavor, smell, and what each recipe awakened. I began compiling texts and images from the journal into a free blog, which I named The Healing Table. The visits were modest at first, 4, then 8. A week later, a teacher shared one of my posts about the taste of what's still unsaid in a group of educators. Emails started arriving. Requests. A woman from Colorado wrote, "You captured the feeling I get every time I eat my mom's cake. Thank you." Lavinia's Cafe learned about the blog. They invited me to do a tasting and reading event. I brought 3 pies, 4 notes with excerpts from my father's letters, and a pile of nerves inside my chest. 20 people attended. Some cried. Others stayed silent. A 12-year-old girl handed me a drawing of a table with books on top and said, "I wish my house was like this." That night, I walked the streets of Charleston with a heavy heart, but whole. I was still the woman who had been betrayed. But now, I was also the woman who touched other people. I started being invited to small events, then school fairs, then local author meetups. I always brought simple food with phrases in jars. Each phrase came from the journal. Each recipe carried a pain that transformed. The project grew slowly, without fanfare. In less than a year, I received a call from Radio Charleston requesting an interview. A reporter named Meredith said she had eaten my pie at her niece's birthday and had never felt anything like it. We did the interview on a rainy Monday. I was nervous. She reassured me by saying, "Just be sincere. That's what moves people." The following week, the story aired with the title, "The Woman Who Cooked Her Own Pain and Served Poetry in Slices." The blog exploded. Social media did too. I was invited to participate in a culinary literature festival in Savannah. And it was there that my past knocked on the door again. In the audience in the last row was Mark. He didn't smile. He didn't try to hide. He was sitting with a dark blue coat, a scruffy beard, tired eyes. After the lecture, while I was signing books, he approached me. "Brooke," he said quietly, as if my name still burned inside him. I looked into his eyes. Nothing inside me trembled anymore. Nothing begged for an answer. He asked to talk, said he needed to. That it wasn't about getting back together. It was about closing what he had opened wrong. I agreed. Not for him. For me. We sat on a bench near the river, and Mark started speaking. He said that Jenna had convinced him I was too passive, that I didn't challenge him, that I didn't make him feel alive. He said with her everything was adrenaline, novelty, provocation, that he felt dragged in, involved, and when he realized it, he was in something that didn't make sense. He said Jenna was intensity without depth, that she screamed "I love you" and the next day blocked him for not responding in 2 minutes. He said she cheated on him with an investor from Atlanta 3 weeks after my engagement, and that he deserved it. As he spoke, I wondered why all this now. Why, after everything, did he still want to justify himself? He concluded with a sentence that chilled me. "You were my home, and I left the only place where I felt safe." I remained silent. Not out of resentment, but because there was nothing left inside me that expected anything from him. I only said, "You destroyed something I spent years building, but in the process, you forced me to discover who I was without you." And that, in a twisted way, was freeing. He looked at me with watery eyes. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. We said goodbye with a handshake. Nothing more. I returned to Charleston that night and watched the city from the bus window. For the first time, the past didn't follow me like a shadow. It was back there, and I didn't need to bend to it anymore. What I didn't know was that Mark would return, but not with guilt, with a ring. And this time, it would be me who would choose whether there would be an ending or a new beginning. The week the radio interview went viral, my inbox became uncontrollable. I woke up to notifications from people I had never met, telling me they cried reading my piece about the recipe my father left for when love was absent. It was as if everyone, in some way, was silently trying to heal something, just like I had done for months. I received invitations to events, book clubs, and school projects. One immediately caught my attention, a multicultural festival in Charleston, hosted by one of the largest art centers in South Carolina. The concept was simple. Each participant would have a booth to present what represents their identity and heritage. I accepted immediately. On the morning of the event, I wore the embroidered linen shirt that belonged to my grandmother and tied my hair in a low bun, just like my father always complimented. My booth had 3 pies, a teapot of hot tea, old poetry books, and a clothesline with small notes hanging by clothespins, each with a handwritten phrase from his journal. It was like setting up a portable home. In less than an hour, a line formed. People tasted the pie and read the notes as if they were opening letters written just for them. And it was when I got distracted for a moment, jotting down an order, that I heard that voice I would recognize anywhere. "Brooke." I turned slowly. Jenna was there. Unlike what I expected, she wasn't wearing makeup or smiling. She wore a simple blouse, jeans, and a look that didn't fit her. A dull look. She walked toward me as if stepping on broken glass, stopped in front of the table. Her eyes scanned the notes, the decor, the dishes. She picked up a napkin with the phrase, "Sometimes what breaks us is what makes space for something new to be born," and read it in silence. "Did you do all this by yourself?" she asked. "Yes," I answered. She took a long time to speak again. She just kept looking at me, the kind of look that doesn't look away, trying to find something to hold on to. Then she said, "I thought he was going to stay, that I was going to win." I stayed silent. She continued, "Mark blocked me from everything. He said he felt dirty for everything that happened, and that he realized I just wanted to take someone's place, not build anything real." "So you lost him?" I asked. She laughed without sound. "Not just him. My mother's respect. The trust from my new job. I sabotaged myself trying to sabotage you. There was a time when I would have felt satisfaction from that. Today, all I felt was pity. Pity for someone who still doesn't understand that you can't steal what was never built." "Why did you come here, Jenna?" She swallowed hard, looked around. People kept passing by, taking photos, smiling. It was as if the world around us was on a different frequency from our conversation. "I came because you won, and I wanted to know what it's like to lose like this." I took a deep breath. "You didn't lose because of what you did to him. You lost when you chose to erase me to shine." She remained silent. I served a piece of pie, placed it on a plate, and extended it to her. "It's apple with lemon zest, recipe from Dad," I said. She took the plate with trembling hands, took a bite and closed her eyes. She seemed to cry, but not out of regret, out of absence. "Thank you, Brooke. Really." Before she left, I said, "I don't hold hate, but I won't give you a place anymore. You can eat this slice, but the table isn't yours anymore." She nodded and left. That same day, at the end of the festival, when the sun was already hiding behind the Arthur Ravenel JRB bridge, a man approached my booth. It was Mark. This time, he didn't seem lost. He was wearing a simple white shirt, well-groomed beard, and holding a navy velvet box. When he stopped in front of me, he opened it slowly. Inside was an engagement ring, the same one from before. "You're going to hate me for this," he said, but I didn't come to apologize. I came because even after everything, I still think you are what the word home means. My body froze. Time seemed held by the air. I know I was wrong. I know I abandoned you. But no one knows me like you do. And no one would forgive me like you would. If there's still any part of you that can love me, let me start over. And now, the right way. I looked at him, at the box, at my fingers that no longer carried his marks. I could have said yes. I could have accepted the ring as part of a beautiful redemption. But something inside me screamed louder. "No, Mark, I'm not that woman anymore. I don't wait for those who leave me at the altar. I'm the one who writes my ending. And in it, you're just a poorly written chapter that taught me how to revise the whole story." He lowered his eyes, closed the box, said, "I understand." He turned his back and walked toward the parking lot. In front of me, someone asked for another piece of pie. Behind, a girl added another note to the bulletin board. I read it. It was mine, but it was as if someone else had written it. Today, I choose who sits at the table, and not every regret deserves a seat. The week after the festival, I was invited to give a small talk at a public school in North Charleston. Topic: How pain can become language. I brought my recipe journal, some old photos of my father, and half a dozen homemade honey cakes. I spoke to 40 teenagers with tired eyes and hidden hopes. I told them how I had almost been erased from within, how family betrayal is a wound that bleeds silently inside the chest, unnoticed by anyone, and how, even while bleeding, it's possible to create something with your hands as long as you choose not to become the one who hurt you. At the end of the lecture, a student handed me a note. In it, written with firm handwriting, was a phrase: "Your past doesn't define your place, but it can light the way if you stop running from the pain." I kept it in my pocket. It felt strange to be recognized, to be admired, but it felt even stranger to realize that I was whole. Truly, that same afternoon, I was surprised by a notification on my phone. A message from Jenna. She hadn't written in days since the festival. But now she said, "I've been recommended for a position at Page and Ink bookstore." I asked for references. Could you be one? I stared at that message for a while, not out of anger, but out of awareness. After everything, after all the lies, manipulations, and the empty spaces created on purpose, she was asking me for a bridge. I didn't respond immediately. I went to the cafe's kitchen, where a batch of vanilla cupcakes was about to come out of the oven. I grabbed a white napkin, wrote a phrase with my brown pen, and took a photo. I sent the image in the chat. The phrase read, "Some cries for help or just attempts to go back down the same path they destroyed." Minutes later, she replied simply, "I understand." There was no argument, no response. There was silence. And this time, the silence didn't hurt. On Sunday, I went to the Central Market to buy ingredients for a new menu. I was walking between the stalls when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Brooke." I turned. It was Mark. He was dressed simply, a bag of fresh bread in his hand, reading glasses hanging from his shirt. His beard was unshaved, but his gaze was calm, different from that contained desperation the day he tried to restart. Before he said anything, I smiled and asked how he was. He said he had accepted a job as a public defender in Greenville. Something simpler, more aligned with what he wanted at the start of his career. He asked if he could walk with me to the exit. As we walked, he spoke little, just enough to say that he was okay, that he hoped I was too. When we said goodbye at the corner, he hesitated for a second. He opened his backpack, took out a small blue box, and extended it to me. "It's not a proposal," he said. "It's just a gesture." I opened it. It was the same ring, but now, with no exaggerated shine. Matte. Aged by the box. Almost melancholic. I accepted the box, looked inside, carefully closed it, and returned it to him with a calm smile. Today, my sister's ex proposed to me. Again. But this time, the answer came from another woman. One who learned to say no without trembling. One who doesn't confuse forgiveness with a return. One who knows that victory isn't when the other suffers, it's when you no longer need to win over anyone. That night, I sat on the bench of the balcony of my new apartment with a view of the bay. I placed my father's journal on my lap and wrote one last sentence before going to sleep. Being chosen is good, but choosing yourself is freedom, and for the first time in a long, long time, I slept with a smile. If this story touched your heart in some way, leave a like so it can reach more women who need to hear this today. And if you believe every new beginning deserves to be told, subscribe to the channel. There are more real, intense, and twist-filled stories coming your way.